All right. Again, just want to greet everybody and thank you all for joining us tonight. Hopefully this will be a great opportunity for you to understand just a little bit better as to what our plan is that we've developed. We have been blessed with a good number of folks who have joined on the COVID advisory committee, as well as also our leadership team and our board. Countless hours, honestly, have been spent in trying to put this plan together, and lots of prayer has gone into that too as well. And we're just so thankful that we're able to prepare for a 5-day a week program that's live, that we're hoping to have your students back. Of course, as we always put that caveat there, if the state changes their mind and doesn't allow us to have the live classes, we have to prepare for the second side of that, and that's to have online learning. So we're working together with that. We'll hear a little bit more about that tonight during our meeting, and so hopefully you're looking forward to hearing a few more details that way. Let's go ahead and start with prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all you do, and thank you for your faithfulness in our lives. We look forward to what you're going to do in healing our nation in so many challenges that we are facing right now. I ask, Lord, that you would just be with us this evening as we try to communicate well, and may our words be clear and accurate, but most of all, may they be honoring and glorifying to you. I ask that you would open our understanding for all those who are attending our webinar tonight, that they may better understand what the plan is, and that this time has been useful for them as they hear what's going on. Again, we just thank you for your faithfulness that way. In thy very precious name we pray. Amen. So, as I shared before, we have provided the document, the Road Back to Reopening document, that you should have gotten the link to, it's on our website at this point. So on our website is going to be any of the updates as they come along. If you ever want to know what's happening or what the latest is, you go to the website and you see the COVID-19 updates, and you'll see all of that information. And as we keep putting information there, that will keep you informed. So if you might have missed an email or something like that, you'll be able to go to the website and catch it all the time, and feel like you're up to date that way too as well. So the document itself, if you have not had a chance to read it, was divided into 4 major sections. The first section was the medical description of COVID-19. The second was the application of the medical guidance that we've received. The third was the physical changes in educational setting. And the fourth was cleaning and maintaining our facilities. And there's some things that are not in that document yet, because those things have not been decided. It's an ongoing process, and so we're looking forward to giving you more of that information shortly. One case in point to that is the athletic program. There's some guidance that has recently come out that changed that plan, and so we hope to have that out in the next day or two, so that those of you who have students who would participate in sports can see what the participation process is. And there's a whole plan that comes from our league, as well as also the New Jersey Interscholastic Association that will give us that provides us information as to how that has to happen. So that's what we're doing. So we're going to start with our very first section, the medical description. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity of checking our video that we sent out, the link to Dr. Medina's video that we asked her specifically to put together, because so many people were asking even before our document went out, just what is this about COVID-19? And I don't understand the whole process that way, and I'm the wrong kind of doctor, so I had to pick on somebody else. And Gladabelle, I apologize for twisting your arm too much, but you know, in any case, we've asked Dr. Medina to come and just share with us tonight just a little bit about some of what the document actually says as far as the medical description, but maybe some updates there too as well. So Gladabelle, take it away.
Okay, great. So hello, everybody. We're going to start with just a few points regarding medical information about COVID-19. The first one is the cost. We know that is caused by a new type of coronaviruses. Coronaviruses have been around. This one has been identified as SARS-CoV-2. Medical information, of course, is limited, but data is continually being gathered. Number 2, transmission. How is the virus acquired? So the virus has to touch your mucosal surfaces in your eyes, nose, and mouth by making contact with respiratory droplets from the infected individual. And that usually happens when droplets are produced by coughing, sneezing, talking, and the healthy individual is standing within 6 feet, within a 6 feet distance from the infected individual. And those droplets can potentially reach your eyes, your nose, and your mouth, and you can acquire the disease that way. Less commonly, you have transmission through contaminated surfaces. If you touch the surface where droplets are, and you bring those droplets to your face, eyes, nose, and mouth, you can also get the virus that way. Number 3, the incubation period. Basically what that means from acquiring the disease to symptom presentation is about 2 to 14 days. What are the symptoms then? Number 4, fever greater than 100.4 degrees, cough, difficulty breathing, body aches, headaches, fatigue, sore throat, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Not everybody experiences all these symptoms. They can be different for different people, and some even have none. However, those are the most common ones that we see. And the disease course, of course, thankfully, the majority of the cases are self-limited. However, severe and even fatal disease does occur, and this involves primarily the elderly population and those with underlying chronic medical conditions. As of today, the CDC, the AAP, and the New Jersey Department of Health all continue to report that COVID-19 in children and adolescents under 18 years of age make up less than 7% of the cases and less than 0.1% of the death associated with this illness. So severe disease is uncommon in children, but it does happen, and complications associated with COVID-19 can also happen. In terms of exposure and close contact, the definition of that is anyone within 6 feet of an infected person for at least 15 minutes, according to the CDC, or for more than 10 minutes, according to the New Jersey Department of Health. Those are the individuals that would be searched through contact tracing. Prevention, we all have to keep in mind that the preventive measures are set in place to reduce the risk of acquiring or spreading the disease. They do not completely eliminate the chances of anyone getting the disease, but they definitely reduce the risk. And these measures include hand washing for more than 20 seconds with soap and water. When soap and water is not available, hand sanitizer, alcohol-based, until the hands are dried. Practicing social distancing, staying away from others for 6 feet or more. Wearing a cloth facial covering, but that is to protect others from your secretions. They do not prevent you from getting the disease. And also cleaning and disinfecting, of course, potentially contaminated surfaces. In the context of diligent mitigation strategies and when the community spread is low, all the CDC, AAP, and the New Jersey Department of Health all agree that exposure to in-person schooling is in the best interest for our students. And that is a wrap up of that.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Medina. We appreciate you sharing that. Just so that everybody's aware, if you look at your screen, it's either at the top or the bottom, depending on the version of Zoom that you have. And if you hover your mouse over that section, you will see a thing that says Q&A. And that stands for questions and answers. And if you have a question, you can go ahead and put that in there. To be honest, we had a lot of questions that were provided, as our email suggested, to our COVID-19 email address at timothychristian And so we are anticipating answering those questions tonight during our 45-minute time frame that we've set aside here. We certainly want to be respectful of your time, but if you have a question, you're welcome to put that in that. And then I've asked Lisa, our Director of Advancement, to go ahead and manage the questions for us. That way then she can read that as different people are presenting either answers to questions and or these different sections that we have in our group here that way. So Lisa, did you have some questions before we go on to the next section?
Yes, we do have a question for Dr. Medina. Dr. Medina, if a student contracts the virus, what are the long-term effects?
Okay, so thank you, Lisa. That is a good question. Long-term effects, we can't really tell right now because the virus is so new. The data, however, is being collected. Most of the cases that we've seen are self-limited. Again, children recover. Some have developed complications with inflammatory organ disease. However, long-term, months down the road, years down the road, we can't answer that question right now because of insufficient data.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering that, Dr. Medina. Lastly, for this section, I just want to share that someone asked, this is just a general question, about who was on the COVID-19 advisory committee and a little information about them, backgrounds, credentials, etc. And I just want to share that that is posted on our website on the COVID-19 updates page, where you can find the Road Back reopening document as well as Dr. Medina's video. So if you want to hear more about what she just shared, the video is on that page. And then after that, you will see the listing of everyone that was involved with the Road Back reopening plan. Doc, back to you.
All righty, thank you, appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and try to move this slide now to the next one, which is our second section, the application of medical guidance. Okay, and you can see some of the topics there that we're trying to point out that were in our plan. Again, we encourage every one of you to reread the plan. If you haven't read it first, read it for the first time, but hopefully that way you will be able to see exactly what some of the details are that we have in the plan here. So our first important thing, the application of that medical guidance, is that we need students to be screened by their parents prior to coming to school every day. That is a critical thing that needs to happen. And essentially, if parents aren't doing that, it creates an issue for us. I know that in the past, because parents needed to go to work and things like that, there probably were some times when, you know, okay, they had a little bit of a fever or something like that, and so give them Tylenol and send them off to school. They'll probably be fine. This is not the year to do that. We, out of respect for one another, it's imperative that parents consciously review those concerns each and every day. And we're actually going to create a checkoff list for you to have there at home so that you can check that and make sure that your students are ready to come to school. Because honestly, if they have those things, it's wise not to have them at school. First of all, for their own safety, and then secondly, also because of the safety of others. And this is just critical step in our whole program here. Another thing that is part of the plan is the temperature checks. We will be scanning students as they come in to see if they look like they're ready to fall over, those kinds of things, etc. But one of the objective aspects of this disease, and as Dr. Medina already shared, it's not that it's necessarily the requirement that you have a temperature, a significant temperature, but for us, we will be checking temperature. So your students, as they come in, will, as they get out of the cars and things like that, we have non-contact temperature scanners. We take them and we put them up about 2 to 3 inches from the forehead, and it gives us within a half a second their temperature. And if everything goes well, they can go on through, and that will help us minimize the situation as far as students coming in. Unfortunately, If that temperature is higher than 100 degrees, okay, and we use 100 because that's been our standard all along. If it's higher than 100 degrees, then unfortunately your child is not permitted to be on campus, again, for the safety of everyone else. So that's why I'm asking parents to make sure that before you even bring them, put them on the bus, or before you even bring them to school in your cars or things like that, that you double check those things just to make sure that they're healthy and ready to handle those things. We're also going to be adding hand sanitizer. Now, we've had the hand sanitizer things around and things like that, but we're going to be putting hand sanitizers in each of the classrooms, and as well as also the main entrances to each building. There'll be a main entrance for each building that you go through. So if you want to go into a building, that's the main entrance that you go into. They'll be identified with special marking, and that's where hand sanitizer units will be available. But again, they are also available in the classrooms. But even though we talk about the hand sanitizer thing, I go back to what Dr. Medina also already shared. The soap and water is the most effective. And so we really are not asking students to use all the hand sanitizer that they possibly can. We're asking them to effectively use soap and water and wash their hands and not touch their eyes, nose, or mouth, and that will help prevent them from getting any kind of disease. Part of the process here, our effect of the application of the medical things, is that we're looking to have face coverings. So our faculty and staff are all required to have a face covering that will be there for them. For some of our younger, the teachers of younger students, that may be a face shield as opposed to a face mask, but indeed they do have to wear that, and that's a government requirement, and so we will be doing that as long as students are in the class, okay, or in the same room. They're supposed to have that on, and that will help protect the students from getting any kind of disease that way. Okay, also, we're asking that students would also have, not asking, that students must have a face covering with them as they come to school, and they're expected to wear that face covering in situations where social distancing is not a possibility. We do know that the governor can change his direction and things like that, and that's what the original plan said. However, there's some interpretation that we're looking for to see whether or not we need to have it more often than just when the social distancing is not a possibility, and that would be out of our control. TCS is planning on arranging our student desks in such a way that will meet the New Jersey state requirements, and typically all facing the same direction, which will help reduce some of the concerns that way too as well. Anytime that during the school day, if a student demonstrates that they have any COVID-19 ongoing symptoms, they will be perceived as actually potentially having the COVID-19 positive symptoms, and then would be sent immediately to what we'll consider an isolation area. I hate that term isolation, but it is separating them from other students, and the nurse will, or one of our medical people will take care of them, making sure that they check their temperature and those things, etc. And of course, students, when they're in that situation, absolutely have to wear a face covering unless they have a medical reason why they are not allowed to do that. But they will be separated from the normal nurse office setting, so as to not contaminate the situation where somebody has a situation where they have maybe a cut finger or something like that. They don't have to worry about getting connected to people that might have the COVID there too as well. And then also for visitor screenings, as visitors come, all visitors will be required to wear face coverings, and they will also be screened as they come on campus, as they arrive on campus. So that means parents, as you arrive, if there's a reason for why you need to come in, unfortunately, because we can never tell who has the virus itself, we do need to have the scanning there. So please expect that, and also expect to wear a face covering as you come in that way. So, all right, so that's our section here on application of medical guidance. Lisa, do we have questions?
We sure do, Dr. Smock. We have several questions that have come in about this section. So we will start with Mrs. McInerney. Can you answer for us? What happens when a student gets the coronavirus? Will the entire class be required to quarantine for 14 days?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. That's a great question. Just like any other sickness that students can get, we will be in contact with the parents of students where there could be a potential exposure. They will be notified and expected to quarantine. But parents of students that were in the class who wouldn't have been exposed because they were wearing their mask and they were socially distanced, we will still communicate the information, but they will not have to quarantine.
Thank you. Ms. McKay, will you answer? The next question is, what is the plan or procedure if a teacher begins to feel ill during the day, and what happens if they test positive for COVID-19?
Thanks, Lisa. That's great. If a teacher or a student for that matter begins to feel sick during the day, it's very similar to what has always been the procedure. They would make their way over to the nurse's office for an evaluation, and she would determine whether they were exhibiting any of the coronavirus symptoms. If they were, they would go into the isolation area that Dr. Smock talked about. If it was a student, they would be there until their parent could come and take them home. If it's a teacher, they're going to probably drive themselves home, and we would get a substitute teacher in the classroom for the rest of the day. They would be then needing to go to the doctor if they did exhibit those corona symptoms to get an all clear from them to be allowed to come back into school. If a teacher tests positive for the coronavirus, they will be doing remote learning from home. They would be continuing the classes remotely, as long as they're not so sick that they can't do that. But if they're just waiting for those results or they know they tested positive, so class would continue on with their home having tested positive.
Great, thank you. And then if the teacher tests positive for the coronavirus, will the entire class be required to quarantine for the 14 days? Ms. McKay, can you give us that answer as well?
Sure. Since the teacher is masked and practicing social distancing, staying away from students, if the teacher were to test positive, the students, that person's students would not have to quarantine for the 14 days.
Great. Dr. Smock, if students are required to take a coronavirus test, will students be required to take a coronavirus test in any of the above situations that were just mentioned?
Well, I know that schools are noted for testing and quizzes and things like that, et cetera, but this is one that we don't give, okay? Essentially, Timothy Christian School is not going to require anyone to take a COVID test. That's something that a doctor would decide if the student should or should not have that. Likewise, also for teachers as well. We wouldn't require that of the teacher, but that's a medical decision, and that should be made by the doctor that way.
Great. Ms. McKay, has any consideration been given to having staggered attendance or start and stop times or alternating shifts to enable greater social distancing?
Yes, certainly we have considered many options as we try to play all the different scenarios. Thousands of hours gone into trying to think about COVID-19, and we want the ones that we feel best meet the needs of our TCS family. And so because of that, we feel that the best solution at this point is to return 5 days a week to school. And we will not be doing any shifts of students coming to campus or any sort of staggered attendance.
Thank you. Mrs. McInerney, can there be a student check-in system? Will there be something via a website or an app that parents must complete prior to dropping off their student regarding the COVID-19 symptoms?
We are expecting all parents to screen their children at home, and when students enter the school, we are checking them upon arrival by giving them, as Dr. Smock said, the temperature checks, but there's no website or app that we are currently using yet.
Thank you. And can you also answer, Mrs. Mack, will teachers enforce mask wearing for close contact group activities in the classroom?
Yes, teachers will be enforcing that probably every single day, because as you know, kids are unpredictable. But yes, we will be practicing that, and we will be encouraging them to wear them correctly.
Terrific. And also, Mrs. Mack, will the elementary pickup procedures be modified in any way?
Yes, elementary students will be in their classrooms longer rather than in the large cafeteria and waiting there. We just think it's easier if they're in the classroom, and parents will come to the door of their student's building and the student will come to them. If parents do need to come inside the building for any reason, if they have to speak to a teacher or they have to speak to me, they do just have to wear a face covering.
Great, thank you. Ms. McKay, have you considered requiring the middle and high schoolers to wear masks?
Yes, we definitely have talked about that and considered that, and we are expecting that our students in 6 through 12 will wear face coverings, especially where the social distancing is not possible. This will especially include passing times in the hallways between classes. There may be some classes where it's obvious that there are very few in the class, and the teacher would then have the ability to determine that everything is socially distanced and far, and may be able to give a mask break during the day. But for the most part, yes, our students, as per really the governor requiring this, will be wearing face coverings.
Great. And Ms. McKay, also, will unmasked high schoolers or middle schoolers, if they ever are unmasked, will they be allowed into the elementary classrooms as teacher helpers?
So we do have a teacher assistant program where they, the older ones go and help, and our high schoolers will be required to wear masks through the whole time when helping elementary students.
Great, thank you. Mrs. McInerney, who is going to monitor children who are tugging or playing with their masks?
The teachers. We will be practicing and modeling this probably daily, but also there will be a lot of positive peer pressure.
That's great. Positive peer pressure is great. Mrs. Mack, will you also share what will be done about the specials, such as music and library, art, and gym? Will masks be required there? And how will the high-touch objects be sanitized in those cases?
Yes, that's a great question. Any high-touch area, we will definitely be sanitizing between classes, during classes. We are going to hopefully expect students to bring their own crayons, their own pencils, so that there's not a ton of sharing. If there is sharing, like changing of desk, students would wipe that down, and masks will be required when the students cannot socially distance.
Terrific. Mrs. Mack, what about chapels? Will the kids be spaced 6 feet apart, and particularly when they're singing? And will the doors be open?
Those are great questions, and chapel is my favorite day of the week. Yes, the doors will be wide open for great ventilation, and everybody will get to hear our voices. We will have to wear masks, but we will be socially distant. We have the huge open space, so students will probably sit every other seat. And when we sing, we will wear masks.
Perfect. Dr. Spock, what modifications will be made for chorus and band, as there will be an increased amount of expelling air into common areas?
Right, there's a lot of discussion about singing and things like that, etc., that might create more of a problem. And the way to handle that, if there is a lot of singing or necessary for our music things, etc., would be to create greater distance between the students. And so we potentially need to use larger classrooms for those areas that way too. And as well as also possibly reducing the number of students that would be in a classroom. And so, for example, with band, instead of having 50 students all together in one room, that would probably have to be in the chapel or in the gym. We might have 15 or 20 students or something like that in the band room. That would make that socially distancing safe that way too as well. But we certainly want to make sure there's some additional distancing just to make sure that we've covered that. And one of the challenges is, as we don't know yet, okay, where we're going to be as far as the November, December time when we begin to talk about concerts and things like that. They may have to be rescheduled or they might have to be done virtually. It's just one of the challenges that we're going to have to live with as we come up to that.
Okay, I believe that's all the questions for this section at this time.
All righty. So then we're into the next section, which is the physical changes in the educational setting, okay? And we've also alluded to a few of these kinds of things. So our arrival to school, I think we've already talked about that, but students will come to their designated spot, and it's going to take us a little bit longer to process through because of temperature screening, but as they arrive to school, they will go into typically the gym if you're a middle school, high school, or if you happen to be an elementary student, you'll go into the cafeteria area. Teachers will be picking those students up a little bit earlier and taking them to their specific classrooms. So there's even better social distancing that would happen there and managing the same students together. Some people have been concerned about the issue of pods, and that's kind of the same type thing, a smaller classroom together that way too as well. So, being on time is really important in that process, and hopefully that will work real well. As our students in middle school and high school rotate to their classes, we're expecting them now to wear the face coverings just simply because of the further guidance that we're getting from the governor. But hopefully that will work well, and we will hopefully have some opportunity for a break. Those, as I'll call them, face covering breaks, as Ms. McKay also shared too as well. So lunch times are going to be just a little bit different in that we're going to have little logos, what I call stickers, that go on to our lunch tables, and that way then our students know where they're allowed to sit. They have to sit on a Timothy Christian School logo, and that will work for not just our lunchtime, but also will work well for our before and after school activities that way too as well. So we're working on that. The restrooms and locker rooms, we're looking to make sure that we manage those as far as cleaning is concerned, but also we're looking to minimize the number of students who go in at one time, which is of course part of the guidance. The locker rooms, we're seeking to minimize the amount of time that we actually have to use the locker rooms for that same purpose there. But as we do that, we're hoping to keep them clean throughout the day. We're expecting that students will wash their hands after every use, and of course do that for 20 seconds with soap and water. I know that everybody else has shared that you sing happy birthday twice. If you actually sing the B-I-B-L-E, that song that we sing in chapel, if you sing that twice, it does the same thing. So as a Christian school, we're going to do that, okay? But again, the soap and water hand washing is much preferred. And of course, we're asking that students make sure that they're cleaning up after themselves. If I can be crude, they should flush after they're done, okay, as opposed to leaving it a problem that way too as well. So again, students and staff need to avoid touching their eyes, their nose, and their mouth, which is the way that they get those moisture droplets that Dr. Medina shared that way too as well. We had already talked about during the school day, the chapel and assemblies, about how we're managing to social distance them, and so I won't repeat that because Mrs. McInerney already answered that question, but keep in mind that at any time, the governor can choose to say, nope, the numbers have gone up or whatever, so we now have to go to full-time home extended learning that way too. So we need to be prepared for that, as I said at the outset of our meeting here. And so we are upgrading our internet and intranet, okay, so that we can prepare for that. Middle school and high school students will hopefully be able to bring their own devices in for learning, so that while they're at school, they can use the same computer that they would at home. And so likewise, teachers would have that same opportunity to be able to take their laptops to and from school that way. We call it a bring your own device program. So BYOD, bring your own device. Now, if we do that, or as we do that, students will not be permitted to share their devices with any other student, period, because we don't want that sharing of use of items and things like that. And at the same time too, students have to use it only for the educational experiences that they have. It's not time to play games, things like that, etc. One of the challenges is if you're thinking about getting your student a laptop, things like that, you want to make sure that it has good battery life, because there aren't, you know, a bunch of plugs to plug them in. So you're going to want to make sure before that device comes into school that it's well charged and ready to go for the day. And we don't want to waste our electronics, our power, I should say, the battery power, on something like Pac-Man. Okay, I know I'm dating myself that way too as well. So as we also talked about in the plan and earlier, the athletic program and what's going to go out shortly is forthcoming. So there we have it. Lisa, questions?
Yes, we have quite a bit of questions regarding this section. So we'll start with Ms. McKay. Can you answer for us, do all the classrooms and class sizes permit the desks to be 3 to 6 feet apart? Ms. McKay, you're on mute.
Got it. Yes, for the number of students that we have enrolled presently, we would be able to maintain the 3-foot distance in the elementary school. Mrs. McInerney has been working with her staff and going through classrooms, each one, to ensure that. And in the middle school and high school, we will also be striving for that social distancing and going for that as we work on the schedule, which is still being created. And if there was any place where we could not maintain that, you know, we will make sure that the masks are being worn all the time and requiring those masks. But we do believe that given the class sizes and the current enrollment, we are able to maintain that distancing.
Terrific. Dr. Smock, these next few questions have to do with our plan to return 5 days live. The first question asks if remote learning is going to be an option, or if TCS is considering a hybrid model for learning.
Well, the hybrid model is designed for large schools that can't handle lunch programs and things like that, etc. We believe with our enrollment and our size that we can do that. So no, we are not planning on any kind of hybrid thing. We're looking at the 5-day in-person program. And that also is taking into account the need for many of our parents to get back to their regular work schedule. So that's why we're doing that.
Great. Another parent is asking, Dr. Smock, what is the virtual option for Timothy students?
Yes, last week the governor surprised public schools with this fine option, okay? And all of a sudden everybody said, oh my goodness, how are we going to handle that? They're still working on that. TCS is considering how we could possibly provide that option, but it would not be the same as the spring program that we had last year. A teacher cannot do both on live, do that well, and also online, do that well at the same time. It just doesn't work that way. But there might be a different option. We're looking at that. If there is such an option, tuition would basically be the same, okay? But obviously more details will have to follow because, again, it just came out on Friday. So we don't have that information yet.
Great. Dr. Smock, if a parent decides to keep their child home, and will that student's learning be integrated with those in the classroom?
Okay, and if the learning that takes place because I just simply want to choose to keep my child at home, okay, we again don't have that option right now for that. However, if there's a reason that the child has to be quarantined, we are working out some plans to be able to let that student integrate with what's happening here at our school. But it's not the same thing as what a public school is required to do. Public schools are required to provide the same identical program for every student, whether or not they're a regular ed student or a special ed student or whatever. They're required to provide that same level of education there. And so that's a challenge for them. We need to be praying for them, but at the same time, that's not our anticipation that we would be doing that.
Okay, Mrs. McInerney, will parents be able to see the room set up before deciding whether or not to send their child to school? And maybe is there a way, another parent asked similarly, is there a way you can provide a visual example of what an elementary classroom setup is?
So typically, we showcase our classrooms the day before school starts on September 8th. I know parents are very concerned and just curious and wondering how the classrooms are going to look. I'm personally working with the elementary teachers this week to talk that through and set that up to make sure that we are 3 to 6 feet apart and socially distanced desks. So I'll just give insight as to what the classroom will look like since parents can't come to the school to view that. Desks will be against the wall and facing one direction, which will be obviously to the blackboard or the whiteboard. So in one direction, 3 to 6 feet apart, and let's see, and that's it. That's what it will look like.
Terrific. That gives us a good visual, Mrs. McInerney. How many students are anticipated in each elementary classroom?
That is a great question. And because it's July, that number fluctuates so much. So we don't have specific stats just yet. It's going to keep changing. But we're making sure that we are doing our best to keep the desks socially distanced. And we're actually working on that this week with the teachers on Thursday.
Terrific. And Mrs. McInerney, how will social distancing be encouraged with the elementary school children in practice, not just in theory? How does that look?
Right. So because of the classroom setup, we're keeping the students socially distanced throughout the day. We're going to constantly talk to the kids about that. We're going to use our beautiful open campus. We are so blessed to have a campus and all of those open green spaces. So when we can do reading time outside or PE outside, things like that, we are just going to take every opportunity to do that. And just so all parents know, the first few days of school will basically be on learning how to wear our mask properly, learning how to socially distance. I know kids love to give hugs and high fives and all those great things. And, you know, just right now, we just have to be so careful. So we will probably have to teach them a song about giving virtual hugs and things like that. But, you know, it's a lot of review and practice and modeling in the beginning.
That's great. Thanks, Mrs. Mack. Ms. McKay, will students be kept in defined groups such as pods to reduce contact?
So there are different buzzwords that are around, and pods may be one of them. The CDC and the AAP and the New Jersey Department of Health kind of came up with some suggestions for how to better meet the needs of schools that are large, that can't maintain social distancing, have too many students in the classrooms. And so pods were one of those suggestions coming from them, but due to the size of our school and the elementary classes, it's really the class would actually function in the same way, excuse me, as a pod would in public school. The size of our classes would be the size of their pods.
Thank you. Mrs. McInerney, how will drop-off and pickup be managed to maintain social distancing?
Great question. We are going to be taking temperatures at the start of the day or upon the student's arrival. It's happening in the gym for middle school and high school, and it's happening in the cafeteria for elementary. There will be before care and after care. Elementary students will go to their classrooms from the cafeteria earlier. We said that before. And like Dr. Smock also said, there's going to be a designated door that's the entrance and a designated door that's the exit. And we are really just praying that parents just respect the fact of please do that screening beforehand, not Tylenol up their child before they come to school, but if they are, you know, not looking like they feel well or they feel warm, to keep them home.
Great. Ms. McKay, have we considered plexiglass shields in the classrooms between desks?
Yes, those have also been considered, and things have been, many things, like we said, have been kicked around and evaluated. And due to cost and just extra things in the classroom and extra things to wipe down, we have decided not to put in plexiglass shields at this point between desks or separating teachers. We're concentrating on the social distancing and wearing face covering properly to keep us safe.
Great, thank you. Dr. Smock, will there be any type of increased airflow or ventilation in the classrooms to discourage any aerosol lingering of potential germs?
Well, obviously, as part of the guidelines that originally came out from these different agencies, it was suggested that if the windows can be opened, that we would go ahead and do that. And we plan on doing that. In fact, actually, some of our windows, our classroom windows, are supposed to still be changed this summer yet. We're hoping that the contractors will be able to get in and complete that before our school starts. So we'll have some brand new windows for some of the classrooms to be able to do that. The idea of changing our HVAC ventilation system in our classroom is a newer idea that people have come up with, but unfortunately it's an unbelievably expensive proposition. So at this point, no, there's not a plan to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. McInerney, how will lunchtime be managed for elementary students to reduce the large groups and keep social distancing?
Lunchtime, everybody's favorite. They will not have to wear their mask while they're eating their lunch. They're gonna probably sing hallelujah during that time. So we have the beautiful open space of the cafeteria, and sometime in previous years, we've kept the elementary students at half of the room. We will not be doing that. We're gonna spread them all out. There's gonna be seating charts. As Dr. Smock shared, there's gonna be those really cool stickers on the bench so they know exactly what's 3 to 6 feet of, you know, social distancing and being careful with that. There's no sharing of lunches, obviously. And so elementary, middle school, and high school are all doing their best to just make sure that there's assigned seats, seating charts spread out, and just keeping everybody safe.
Terrific, thank you so much. Those are all the questions at this time for this section. Dr. Smock, back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lisa. We appreciate that. And I see that our time, we're actually going over time already. Let me apologize to everyone. Obviously, lots of great questions that you have provided beforehand to our COVID-19 email, as we asked that you would do, and a couple obviously that have come in here. And so we'll try to go ahead and move through this quickly so that we're respecting your time that way too as well. So our cleaning, obviously we want to try to clean regularly throughout the day, the high touch points so that they are taken care of. The whole issue is if there's moisture droplets on those things and student touches that or a staff member touches that, and then touches their eyes, nose, and mouth, that can infect them. So we're trying to make sure that we do our best to keep those clean and process that way too as well. We did communicate in our plan that if there's some volunteers that would want to help with that, and that's typically like a middle school, high school thing that would be done during study halls or something like that, they're welcome to help out with that as long as that's acceptable to their parents. Nobody will be forced to do those kinds of things, but we do have a lot of great servant leaders that way that like to help out, and so if that's the case, we'll do that. But we anticipate having staffing to help do some of the cleaning throughout the day so that we manage that. At the same time too, we also have to have our regular nighttime sanitizing. That will be done with cleaning the floors regularly and things like that, but we're also getting specialized equipment, electrostatic sprayers, if anybody's not familiar with that. Essentially what that is electrostatic sprayer puts a charge on the spray as it goes out, and that's a sanitizer that's approved by the Department of Health that can be used for schools and hospitals. So that sprays out and makes sure that desks and chairs and things like that are covered. And the nice part about the electrostatic part is that it evens itself out as opposed to, oh, I didn't quite hit every button and every spot with my sprayer. So it's just a little safer that way and smooths it out and doesn't allow as much residue to remain that way too as well. So if a student coughs or a staff member coughs or sneezes, we ask that they would do that inside their elbow, just kind of as we've all been taught to do that, as well as also possibly a Kleenex if they so choose to do that. And of course, if ever that happens, that especially like if you're around a computer, we'd ask that those the keyboards would be cleaned off right away, but they'll be cleaned throughout the day through the uses and things like that too as well. The restrooms, we're asking students would, when they use the restroom, both students and staff would flush and wash their hands. They should get a paper towel ready to pull it out of the dispenser. Then they wash their hands for 20 seconds and then pull down the paper towel, dry their hands. That same paper towel then should be used to open the door. If the door opens toward them, there will be trash cans placed at the exit so that they can put them in right there. And I'm sure if you've gone out to businesses and things like that, you've seen that change, that people are putting those waste baskets there for the towels that way too as well. We want to support the idea of a climate that students are keeping their school clean and trying to make that helpful. We also want to support the idea that students are responsible to keep themselves healthy, which means the hand washing and wearing masks appropriately and things like that, or face coverings that way too. So that's what we have for that section. Questions?
Yes, Mrs. McInerney, will you share about the spaces in the classrooms that are specials? So the question we have here is, will elementary students share any of the spaces like music, chapel, the lunchroom with any unmasked middle school and high schoolers? And if so, what will be the sanitizing procedure in between?
Okay, so we will be sanitizing throughout the day. Speaking about the lunchroom, we sanitize after every use. So after middle school leaves, it's sanitized. After high school leaves, it's sanitized. That happens at every lunch regardless. Let's take the computer lab. When a class is in the computer lab, after they are done, keyboards will be wiped down. Same in the art room. Yeah, so sanitizing will just be happening on a more frequent basis and all day long to keep everyone safe.
Terrific, thank you. Dr. Smock, some schools are closed on Wednesdays to perform a thorough cleaning of the school. Will TCS be able to keep up with a thorough cleaning while being open 5 days a week?
Okay. Yeah, I'm confident that indeed with our cleaning protocols that we're developing, that we'll be able to do that. Keep in mind that the process of what we're looking at for COVID-19 and any other disease is about the sanitizing part of that. And so we may not be burnishing our floors. They may not have the brightest shine. You may not be able to brush your teeth looking at the floors, so to speak. But I think that we can certainly get that taken care of. And especially those high touch areas that we'll get that taken care of. I'm confident that we can do that.
Terrific. Ms. McKay, the CDC recommends closing locker rooms and staggered lunch sessions to increase the ability to social distance. What changes are we making with regard to that?
Yes, so certainly the updates for the athletics will be coming out shortly, as things will be modified some there, but and not starting right away either. But in looking at the physical education program, we are evaluating that curriculum to see what we can do to best meet the needs of our students and to keep that class going as part of our K-4 through 12 program, necessary part, but at the same time, looking how we might reduce the time in the locker room or the times we need to use the locker rooms. So looking at different options for how that might be done, and more details will be coming out later as we consider that, but we're definitely looking into that.
Great. Dr. Smock, the road back plan mentioned that student volunteers would be enlisted to wipe down the high touch areas throughout the day. The question is about how will those volunteers be chosen? What does that look like? Can parents opt out of their child not being part of that? Can you answer that for us?
Okay. Yeah, we would certainly only use students who would like to help. They aren't going to miss any kind of academic time. This would only be something that we would allow during study halls and things like that, et cetera. Actually, we had done some of this before. So this is not that students are replacing our cleaning staff. The electrostatic sprayer is going to be done nightly to take care of those things and those high touch areas and things like that. We're going to try to do those throughout the day, but the basic idea behind that statement in the road back was simply to encourage students to be responsible for their space. So just like commonly, you know, we've had things that we give out those Clorox wipes and things like that, that students might clean down their own desk. That kind of thing might happen too as well, but it's not the type of thing that says, okay, we recruited you, you're drafted and you're stuck on that. So I'm sure we're fine with that.
Great, thank you. Ms. McKay, the road back plan mentioned that computer keyboards would only be wiped down if someone coughed or sneezed directly on them. So can you clarify that and share if they will be wiped down after every use or just if someone sneezes?
Sure. I think that's already been kind of stated that shared equipment will be wiped down after each use. It doesn't just take an explosion for it to get wiped down. So after each time, at the period ends, a different student is coming in or whatever, that we wipe down. And certainly immediately though, if there is some sort of cough or sneeze, it would be immediately taken care of. I think most of that, a lot of that will be reduced if students are all in masks anyway, but that will be the protocols for both consistent and for emergency wipes.
Great, thank you. I will share that I think we've been able to answer a majority of the questions this evening. I know there are still some that have come in tonight as we've been talking that we may not have been able to get to. So I just want to say thank you, first of all, so much for all of you that sent in questions ahead of time, and for those of you who have been putting in questions tonight. We really appreciate your heart for wanting to really understand and know and giving us the opportunity to be able to answer those questions and even help us think through things at a deeper level. So thank you for your participation in this. And for those questions that did not get answered tonight, please know we are still going to answer them. We will be publishing something, you know, the next version, or not the next version, but an update of the reopening document. And as soon as that is complete, that will get posted on the website, and Dr. Spock will be sending out an email to let you all know that updates have been posted, and then you could look there for those. In addition, as more things develop over the next couple of weeks, we will be letting you know, and if there's a need, we will even do this again. Dr. Smock.
Well, again, thank you for all of our panelists who have been willing to take time out of your schedules to connect with us and give us information that way. Also, thank you, parents, for your trust in Timothy Christian School. We certainly want to maintain that and honor that, and I believe that together we can be committed and safe. So we're just looking forward to that, and Lord's blessing be upon you until the next time that we see each other. Have a good one.
Thank you.